Good day, everyone. This is part 4 of your build for your snow speeder. Now what we're going to do right now is we're going to have to close in this back section. So what you have to do is you have to cut these pieces and get them to fit properly. And that one I think goes over here, but I'm not sure. This one is cut right. All right, now that is going to be where the block goes and all the cooling fins for the inside of the chassis. Now, whenever you've got your, like this is my new paper that I'm using for this part, excuse me. Anyway, always sand it, because if you do not sand this paint, even though it's biodegradable, your glue won't stick to it. And so you sand it off. At least rough it up, because that way your glue will stick well. And I've found, and I did this at the very beginning, back in 2010 and 11, I made parts that were popping apart because I did not sand my paper down. Okay, now let's see what we got here. And I sign and date everything. And so anybody that wants to ever find out what I've done, it's pretty simple, because I number and sign and date my pieces. And so now that fits on there just like so. All right, so what we do is we just stick some bonding agent, Elmer's glue, in here like this. And it doesn't matter if you get too much in here, because it's all inside. It doesn't show whatsoever. And so then we put that in place just like that. Make sure that the outside of this glue is wiped off. This down here doesn't matter, because I can take my little sanding block and I can take that little piece off of there. Now that is going to get centered like so. And once it is centered, because this is my center line right down the chassis, I center that, and now we're going to do this other piece. At first, I want to check it to make sure it's right. I always suggest making 2 pieces, because if you do that, while one is drying, you can work on the other one. Now, that needs to be trimmed off just a little tiny bit. So, I just take that edge off, we put it back on here, and we check it to see what's going on. Looks really good. Everything fits extremely well. Now, we just grab some more of this Elmer's glue, which works exceedingly well with paper. I've been using it now since 2010. And one of the things that I have found is that it doesn't degrade. This was the first piece I made in 2010. Oh yeah, you can do all kinds of things with it. You can play with it. If it breaks, you just glue it back together. But anyway, acrylic paint, Elmer's glue, and recycled paper is what that's made of. That was actually made out of a mac and cheese box when I was in the Gray Bar Motel. Now I've got that. All right, so what we've got to do now is make these other enclosed pieces. The best thing to do is to have this little tiny felt marker, is what I use when I'm making pieces like this. Because now what I can do, all right, it's hard to scribe underneath the engine like that. And so I'm going to take this and put it on here like so. I'm centered, okay. And so anyway, what I have got here is I've got my angle that I need. And we grab a hold of that. It is still centered good. Yeah. Okay, and now I just make a mark over here. Oh man, that's yeah, well, that happens. Okay, so now I've got that back in place. I'm holding down on it really well, and now I've got to make this work. Okay, this time it marked. And that is my mark. So what I do here is we just cut this off a little bit long. Cut it off a little bit long, and then go in here and take it off like so. All right, because here's the deal. Now that I have that made, whoops, wrong side. There we go. And I put it on here just like this. All right. Well, it's cut on a little bit of an angle, so I just trim this little bit of an angle off of there, and I put it back on and I check it out. Okay, that's good. Now we can just glue it in place. And because you've sanded your paper down, the glue will stick well. Make sure your point is correct, and then just hold it for, 60 seconds. And 60 seconds is usually long enough to get the Elmer's glue to attach to both pieces of paper very well. And the thing is, if you do not hold little parts like this, what will happen is like this little end over here will curl off because it's wet. All right, there's a lot of moisture in Elmer's glue, and you don't want it to curl off like that, because then you come back and it's glued. Shoot, it's just darn it, it's a mess. 30 seconds should be good. All right, now what I want to do is I want to do the other side. So I put this down here just like so. I'm doing the other side of it. I'm holding this down into place, and it won't slip. Ow! And it can slip, just like that. If your part slips, you have got to straighten it up, because if you do not, it won't fit right. All right, now we put it on here just like this. Okay, so here's an easy thing to do. You line up your top piece, which is this right up here. Now the bottom one is wrong. And so all I have to do is mark this right like so. All right, now what I've got is I've got my cut line. All I have to do is go in there, cut it off like so, and now this piece is squared up with the end of the ship like it needs to be. And here's the thing, this little extra piece that's on there, that is no problem, because you can take your scissors once this is dried and you can cut that tail off of there. And so your part will look beautiful. It'll be matched up absolutely fantastic. Take the extra glue. Always have a glue pad to wipe your fingers off on. Because if you do not, you'll go to let go of a part, instead of it sticking to what you're building, it'll stick to your fingers, and it defeats everything you're doing. Now I can grab this up here, grab it back there, and hold it down, and take these scissors, and actually I'm going to use these ones my wife got me over here. These are little bitty scissors, and we just go in here like so and take that off like that. And there, now, and this will sand down to look right. What you've got now is you're beginning to close in the back of your speeder. And these are cooling fins in here. And I've been thinking about what I want to do to make the harpoon. All right, this harpoon, I think I'm going to use a push pin for it. And so I happen to have a whole bunch of different push pins. And now I've got these heavy push pins right here. Now the ball on this is too big. All right, it's too big. But the thing is, if you glue this in the way it is right now, it makes the control mechanism look pretty good. And so there's a way you can fix it being too big. I don't suggest holding it with your fingers. And the reason I don't is because when you start sanding something like this, it gets hot. And that heat transfers through the metal and it will burn you. So, don't do it. And this is a plastic ball on here. And so it basically burns off, is what it does. And then you just break the piece off. You turn it 180 degrees, and you take down this other side. All right. Now, I wasn't being careful. I took down too much. All right, but since I want to square this thing up, oh, it spun on me. I square it up like this. All right, now what's happening is, and I'm going to do this also this way. Now you don't have to square everything. Put some angle on it. Okay, and that's wanting to turn too much. All right, so now I got to get it back in here and get a hold of it so that I can squeeze it really well, because it's slipping and I don't want it to slip. All right, now I squeeze it really hard and I put an odd angle on this. And what that is doing is, that is giving me a shape to it. And so that shape, when you paint it, it'll show. And so now what I have is I have this really cool looking gun for back here, which is what the harpoon comes off of. And I look at it, yeah, that looks pretty darn good. Okay, now I check my elevation on it. It just looks really good. All right, so here is what you have to do at this point. You have to figure your distance, because the harpoon in the picture doesn't quite stick out past this. And so now I take my my baby Sharpie and I put a mark on it right there. All right, now I think that's a little bit short. All right, but it looks good, but it's a little short. So now I take my my side cutters and I grab a hold of this. I see where my mark is, and I add just a 1/8 of an inch, a 1/16 of an inch more. And we cut, oh yeah, it came off. Oh, and definitely do not lose these little needle pieces, because if you do, you'll find them in the bottom of your foot, and then you have to go to the doctor and have it removed. And so I have this special little spot right here to drop those in, because every once in a while you need a little sharp pointed thing to make some detail. All right, wait a minute, I need a second one of these. And so I grab another one because I need two. Actually, I'm making 3. And so, because I want one to do a raffle. Oops, that's too big. Oh, that goes down there. All right, so I'm doing a raffle. So I need 3 of them. Okay, now that is basically completed. And I've shown you how to do that. Now what we do is we take this glue that I got from Ketones. Now if you want this glue, this glues unalike materials really well. And I have got an address and phone number that you can call them at the lamp shop and get this glue. Oh, you little dog, you. Sometimes it is really hard to use these little teeny tweezers on these parts. All right, but now that is, that is set. Now what you have to do is you have to make sure it doesn't twist on you. And so that takes, you have to keep it in exact same location so that it doesn't move, because that now becomes your launcher for the harpoon on the snow speeder. You've got the back closed in, and now what you have to do is you're going to have to cut these cooling fins that go in here, and they don't stick out very far. I'll show you. See, this is what you're working with right here, cooling fins. So now all I have to do, since I'm holding this at the same position, I don't want it to slip or anything. Let it dry a little bit longer. So now I check my size here, and so what I've got is 3/32 of an inch. So that means 1/8 of an inch is what I need to cut these cooling fins on. All right, now that is 1/10 or 1 centimeter. So you have to go to millimeters if you're using millimeters, and that would be 10, 11, 12 millimeters basically. So I'm using American stuff, and so I'm going with 1/8 of an inch. And these cooling fins, I have to look at this for a second. Oh, isn't that interesting? I didn't even notice that, but that's okay. I don't know if that's accurate or not. So, the cooling fins all need to be from this height here. So, 1/8 of an inch by 3/8 of an inch. So now we go back to this here piece that I have sanded. And I need to go 3/8 of an inch. That's how tall these cooling fins are going to be. And now it's 3/8 of an inch here. And so we put a ruler on this and see it's all, okay, it's straight. And there's that. And I know, because I already measured this, they need to be at 1/8 of an inch. So, the easy way to do this is square, right here. This ruler is absolutely square. This is 1/8 of an inch, right there, between there and there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here like this, and I'm going to make this mark. Now, I know that, then I move the ruler this way 1/8 of an inch. And I make another mark, and another 1/8 of an inch. Now what I'm doing is I'm getting perfectly square 1/8 inch lines on this 3/8 of an inch wide piece, because I have to have a bunch of these. And I don't know how many a bunch is until I start actually putting them on the ship. And it doesn't matter if it runs off like that, because the whole thing is you're going to be cutting it straight with your scissors. And this is what's called layout. This is called layout work, because you have to lay out a lot of parts sometimes to make something. Well, there happens to be 6 or 8 fins or more on these ships. And since I'm building 3 of them, I need to make a whole bunch of these. And now, that is the last one. Those are all the same now. or very close to it. Enough close to it that it isn't going to matter if there is just a teeny tiny variance. Now we cut that off, and we know that this little piece on the end is not going to work. And so now that's the last piece I'll cut. It is pretty important that you use your scissors to cut these right on the lines, because these are little tiny parts that you're building, and they will show if you don't have them even or equal on each side. Since you already cut your length, they will be lengthwise perfect. And so now you have to cut these marks out very closely to what you are doing, so that they all are very accurate as far as width, because these are really important. Now this last one has to be turned around and cut the other way because it's too short to hang on to. Now I have all of these pieces. All right, and it's something I do, which you all know a little bit about, is I always put the lid on this first so you don't screw it up. All of these parts that I'm now doing for this go in a little tub so you don't lose them, because the problem with making parts is sometimes it takes you a lot of time to do some of this stuff. Well, if it does, and your parts you sneeze, and your parts get blown all over the place, you lose them. In these little tubs, which I got at Wally World for like $2 for 12 of them. Now, you don't lose your parts. Oh, and in the next video, you guys, that I do, I am going to be showing you how to make your stands. All right, because here's the deal with your toys. Your toys are going to have to be flying in formation, basically, is what they are. And so your stand has to be like so. Has to be strong enough to hold it up, not fall over. And then you've got your model that you can play with and show everything that's going on. And so the whole thing with all of this is you just have to keep working with it and learning and stepping farther forward and learning more tricks. And you just get better as you do more and more of this. And so anyway, okay, now that we got that, and the harpoon now is done. And so once this is painted, you'll never know that that was plastic. You won't be able to tell, because it'll be painted up the same as everything else. Okay. What was I going to do? I was going to go do that too. Well, I don't have a whole lot of time left. Wonder what... I'm not sure what I should do next. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this edge, because this is now dry enough that what I'm going to do is, this piece is sticking up too much. And so this is the part that makes your toys or your models look so much better, is making your symmetry right. And I highly recommend getting a Dremel tool, a rechargeable, because it's all you have to do is plug it in and it recharges. And you can do stuff that normally you can't do, because your fingers are just too big to do some of this. And now that makes that look really, really sharp, which is what you want, because it's a, you want your pieces to be factory made, or at least look like they're made in the factory. And so there. And something I just noticed, that engine was sticking out just a little bit. Boy, you just take off the edge. And what you need for building a stand, I'll show you that next time. And so now this piece is gluing into place really well. And I want it to be stronger than what it is. And so what I have to do is, where'd I put that? There it is. I am now, and I clean this end a lot because you have to keep it clean. What I'm going to do now is take this this glue that Ketones sent me, and I am going to add it onto here like so. All right, now what this is going to do is, this is going to make this a lot stronger than what it was. Because as it was weak. And now we take a little bit of this glue and we just kind of move it underneath here like so, like that. And then I push this gun back into place so that it is in the proper place that it needs to be. And now that just needs to sit and dry. And I check it, make sure it's online right, and I look back here to make sure it runs with the body. All right, now that has to be set aside and relax and dry. Well, everybody, thank you for episode 4 of the Snowspeeder build. Take care, Paper Army. And if you get a chance, come check out my YouTube channel, which is The Paper Engineer. And now we are also the _paper_engineer on Clapper.